Welcome to the G5 Hive and our next installment of our Worker Bee series, where we deep dive into the G5 college football landscape with the folks that know the teams the best. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. Today, we'll be taking a look at the Wyoming Cowboys, who are coming off a 9-4 season in which they capped off longtime coach Craig Bull's tenure with a victory in the Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl. They recently began the Jay Savelle era with a spring practice, which ended in April 27th with their spring game. Please welcome to the show. He is Wyoming's beat writer for Wyoming Sports, which is the sports department for the Wyoming Tribune, Eagle, and the Laramie Boomerang. He is a Heisman Associated Press top 25 voter, and he won the 2021 National Sports Media Association Wyoming Sports Writer of the Year. He is Alex Taylor. He can be found on X at Alex_M_Taylor22. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Appreciate you guys having me on, man. It's good to be here.
College football's right around the corner, and we can't wait. So, what better way than Laramie football here? First of all, are you really excited for the EA video game? And how upset are you that they got the punt return wrong against App State?
Yeah, I think that might have been like a slight to Wyoming because John Hoyland, the Wyoming's kicker, had told me maybe like a month before that trailer came out. He was like, "Yeah, I hope they don't butcher my face in the game." And so I tweet that quote out, and then they show him getting burned in the trailer. So I don't know if they saw that or not, but it's a weird coincidence, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, Wyoming's going to start out the season off with a new offensive coordinator in Jay Johnson coming over from Michigan State. So let's get to the position that will man the helm for this new offense, and that's the quarterback. They lose last year's starter Andrew Peasley to graduation, but they do return backup Evan Sabota, as well as Jaden Clemens and others. How did the quarterback room look in the spring, and what can we expect from them in 2024?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty exciting group. I mean, obviously, so Peasley was a 2-year starter. He transferred here from Utah State 2 years ago. He played pretty well the last couple years, but with Evan Savoda, he's junior college transfer, so this was his first year at Wyoming last year, and he's got a strong arm. I mean, just from watching him last year, he started that game at Texas. Kind of did everything he needed or he was asked to do up until the fourth quarter, and then came in during the Arizona Bowl. Pioneered a game-winning drive that set up John Hoyland game-winning field goal there at the end. So I think just the group in general. I mean, they've already come out. Jay Savelle has already announced Savoda as the starter. So no real competition in fall camp, obviously barring any injuries or anything. But they have Jaden Clemens coming back, and that he's number two right now. He's 6 year senior out of he was at Utah and transfers to Wyoming, so they have him as the backup, and then a really promising uh, sophomore or redshirt freshman and Keelan Anderson. He showed some really good stuff during the spring game. So it's kind of one of those things where it's a very competitive group, but they already know how the depth chart's gonna kind of line up. So it's not a lot of storylines, I guess, in fall camp, just in terms of the depth chart. But there's a lot to look forward to, I guess, for Wyoming fans in that room.
For people who aren't around Laramie and not familiar with Evan's game, how would you describe his game to people?
Yeah, I think so. It's funny because Craig Bull obviously recruited Evan, and Craig Bull also recruited Josh Allen. And so there was he would always this every time Evan would get brought up, he would be very hesitant, but he would say, "Hey, I'm not comparing him to Josh, but he reminds me a lot of Josh." And I think for like the outsider, I guess a lot of it's size. I think Evans listed at 6'5", 6'6". He's a big guy. He's a lot bigger than Peasley was. And I think what sticks out about him is his arm. And he has the arm strength that Wyoming quarterbacks haven't really had since Josh Allen. And I think you didn't really get to see that against Texas. They didn't really like unleash that, obviously because of the circumstances of the game. But he's got a big arm, and every wide receiver I've talked to as the first thing they bring up, or just his arm strength and his ability to get the ball out quickly, and that's something Wyoming hasn't had in a while. And I think just his composure. That was his first career start. He transfers to Wyoming from a junior college, goes and starts in Austin, Texas, in front of over 100,000 fans. They're tied 10-10 going into the fourth quarter, and he made his biggest mistake. He threw a pick six there in the fourth quarter, but I think just his composure in the moment, and you saw that in the Arizona Bowl too. Like he has control over the offense, and you can tell that he knows what he's doing out there. So I think that's something to really look forward to for Wyoming football this fall.
Moving over to the running game, they do return a lot of production from 2023, including leading rusher Harrison Whaley, as well as Sam Scott and Jamari Farrell. They also get back Dwayne McNeely from injury, and they bring in DJ Jones from North Carolina. How did the running backs look in the spring?
Yeah, I think Harrison's definitely the number one right now. I guess in my opinion, that's I don't know if that roster like that number one spot's really up for grabs. I think he kind of proved it last year, transferring from Northern Illinois. When he was healthy, he was probably second or third best running back in the Mountain West, behind obviously Ashton Genty and at Boise State. But DJ Jones, North Carolina transfer, he had the best spring game out of any running back. I think he had 77 yards on 12 carries and a touchdown. He did lose a fumble, but he's got kind of an interesting path because he came to North Carolina as a running back, and then he ended up switching to safety just so he could play. And then he played a year at safety, and then he went into the portal because he wanted to play running back again, and that's what kind of landed him here. So that's probably their deepest position right now. I don't know exactly how snap counts are going to play out or anything like that, but obviously Harrison, very very good running back last year in limited time. He battled some injuries last year, but then Dwayne McNeely, he was going into last year, he was going to start over Harrison Whaley, and then he tore his ACL in fall camp. So I'd be pretty surprised if you don't see a lot of him. And then obviously Sam Scott, he played a pretty big role last year, and he made the most of his opportunities. And he's kind of a guy where I wouldn't be surprised to see him at other positions other than just the traditional running back. He's a pretty big guy. He could probably go in some tight end situations, or maybe even like fullback. But yeah, they it's a deep room, and obviously Wyoming football, even with a new coach, it's pound the ball, pound the ball, pound the ball, and they got the guys to do it so far this year.
Given the new offensive coordinator, the depth that they have in the running back room, do you think it might be more of a rotation than what we saw last year?
I'd be surprised. I know it's hard to gauge because Jay Salvell is a defensive coach, so I don't know. I don't know what role he's going to play in the offense, I guess. But Jay Johnson, I mean, he coached Kenneth Walker. He was one of the best running backs in the country at Michigan State a couple years ago, and and I think every football coach will say this, but it's kind of like basketball. It's feed the hot hand, and obviously, if you go out there and you can get 25 yards on 4 carries with Harrison, he'll probably stay out there. But it's more of what is the defense giving you? What looks are they giving you? And I'd be surprised if even last year Harrison was running the ball 18, 20 times a night. Um, and I wouldn't be shocked if he did that, but I wouldn't be shocked if they don't do that again next year, just with the weapons they have behind him.
So the wide receiver room did suffer some losses in the offseason, losing their top 3 wide receivers to graduation in Wyatt Wieland, Ayer Asante, and Ryan Marquez. They do return Alex Brown and Will Pelose. Am I
Pellissier.
saying that?
Pellissier.
Pellissier? Okay.
Yep.
And Devin Bodie Jr. They do bring in some exciting freshmen, Chris Durr Jr. How did this group look in the spring, and who's ready to step up to lead this group in 2024?
Yeah, I've been writing about this for a couple weeks now. It's the wide receiver room is kind of the most iffy group, just not in terms of talent, just in terms of who's going to be the guy. And I think if you look at Wyoming's numbers last year, just in that receiver room, it doesn't pop out at you by any means. Like just in terms of their offense, and they didn't have that number one guy last year that was a target machine. You know, like a leading receiver would have 5 catches. So I think I don't know if you look at the roster. Obviously, you mentioned Alex Brown. He's 6'4". He's a big guy. He's fast. He's big, and he's due. He decided to come back. This is his 6th year in college. So he had the option to come back or not come back. So I think he's coming back pretty motivated. And Chris Durr, the freshman, he had the best spring game out of anybody. So he had 12 catches, 121 yards. I mean, it was just insane where you would do screen pass or something and it would just go for 15, 20 yards. He's just got that breakaway speed. And then another guy is Justin Stevenson, who also had a big spring game. And then Jalen Bean, he's from Garden City Community College. I don't know, Last Chance U, they were in that. That TK King, they picked him up from Texas Tech, ironically, after they beat Texas Tech last year. And Devin Body Jr., him and Ayer Asante came in together last year as transfers. Devin's back this year. He's Vanderbilt transfer. I think he should be more involved in the offense, but at the end of the day, all these guys that I'm listing, one of them, two of them, three of them, whatever, somebody has to kind of step up and be that guy that Savota can kind of trust to go run the route, come up with the ball, especially like you think about like third down situations late in the game. Wyoming's offense hasn't necessarily been built on picking up third logs or the yards that they need in certain situations. So I think there's a lot of opportunities out there. It's a very young, inexperienced group, but there's talent there for sure.
So, what kind of production maybe do we expect from Chris Durr after that hot spring game? Do you think that can translate over?
It's kind of weird because they have a rule. Salvel has a rule now where the media can't talk to players that are in their first year in the program unless they're grad transfers. So he was 17 when he came. So in that spring game, he has 12 catches, 121 yards, and he hadn't even graduated high school officially yet. So
Wow.
yeah, it's the speed is there for sure. I don't know exactly like playing time targets. I don't know what to expect out of that, but like I think Salvel and Jay Johnson, I think they know what they have. It just kind of comes down to utilizing that on the field.
So, in addition to being known for their strong running game and great defense, they also seem to always have great tight end production there at Wyoming. Last season, they were led by the duo of Michael Gillenborg and Trayton Welch. Trayton Welch is off to the NFL, leaving John Michael and Nick Miles to carry the torch in 2024. How did the tight ends look in the spring?
Yeah, it's funny. So Gillenborg and Savota are actually roommates. So they came in together. And we've heard this from Salvel, we heard this from Bull. Like the chemistry is obviously one of the most important aspects in the passing game, like just with that trust. And I think for as much as Gillenborg was able to do last year, he was behind Trayton on the depth chart. And we were talking to Jay Salvel this spring, and he made a comment basically how John Michael Gillenborg is going to have to grow a third lung because he doesn't know when he's going to leave the field. So, and obviously it's funny because Jay Johnson's in his first year, and right when Jay Johnson starts, Salvo was like, "Yeah, I'm trying to figure out talking to Jay. I'm not an offensive guy, but why would we not get him the ball every one or two plays? Like it's just he's that athletic, he's that big, he's fast, he's strong, he can block. So I think that's probably the chalk answer of who my breakout player would be for Wyoming's offense. But that's I think you'd be naive to think that he's just going to be in there blocking. Like he's probably going to be Savota's number one receiver, if I had to guess.
And if he's not getting the targets, he's going to hear about it every night before he goes to bed that, hey, I was open.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's going to be some banter there for sure.
If you had to, if you had to pick an offensive breakout type, an offensive player to have a breakout type season in 2024, you mentioned Gillingsborg. Is there another person, or is that the guy you want to go with?
No, I think I mean obviously, like I said, Gilmore's pretty easy. Savota's pretty easy to anticipate doing well just because the number of reps that they're getting. But I think this might be an unpopular answer, I guess. But I'm going to go with offensive lineman. I'm going to go with Caden Barnett, offensive tackle. So he's going into he had offensive or offseason shoulder surgery, so he missed this spring. But he was an everyday starter last year up until the injury. So he was playing through two shoulder injuries, like two torn labrums at the same time 2 years ago. So then he had surgery on one shoulder last year, and then he just had surgery at the other shoulder this offseason. So I think I was talking to him a couple weeks ago. He's like, I can't wait to have a season where I have two arms. And I think with Frank Crum graduating, obviously he's with the Denver Broncos right now. They need offensive linemen, and Fia, starting center, he's obviously going to be probably a preseason All Mountain West selection, and then Jack Walsh on the right guard, and I think Caden Barnett's going to be right in the middle of them. And I think if they do that, all three their strongest linemen on one side, that's going to be a pretty strong key for their offense, running and passing.
Moving over to the defense, which we mentioned numerous times, is Wyoming, just known for always having a strong defense. They do return a fair amount of production from last season on the defensive side of the ball, but they do lose leading tackler, linebacker Easton Gibbs to the NFL. They return second leading tackler Shane Suianoa, Wyatt Eckler, Isaac White, Jordan Bertagnole, and Devon Harris, among others. How did the defensive unit look in the spring, and did anyone stand out for that defense?
Yeah, I think as I was just talking about, the offensive line is, I don't want to say weakness, but they have some question marks there. So that the defense, and a lot of the open spring practices, you could kind of tell that the defensive line was winning a lot of those battles. They lost a starting defensive tackle in Gavin Meyer. He just transferred to USC after the spring game, so that's been really their only loss out of the transfer portal this offseason. But they have plenty of depth on that defensive line. Obviously, you mentioned Shea Suianoa was the weak side linebacker right next to Easton Gibbs, so he's going to slide over and be that Mike linebacker this year, which obviously you mentioned the tradition. You had Chad Muma, Logan Wilson, Easton. I mean, he's played alongside of plenty of talented guys, and I'd be shocked if he's not continuing that tradition of being an all Mountain West linebacker. And really, their secondary, they return both starting safeties, and they return Rook Brown at nickelback. So their secondary is in pretty good shape. Beyond, they're gonna have to figure out kind of their number two, number three, number four corners. But They're returning a lot of experienced guys, and like you said, they won 9 games last year, and a lot of these guys coming back were a part of that.
Was there another linebacker that stepped up to kind of to take that secondary role, if you will, next to Shane?
Yeah, I think it's hard to guess, I guess, like what the depth chart would be this early before fall camp. But Evan Eller was he transferred in from Virginia Military Institute. I talked to him in the spring. Him and Connor Shea are kind of that would be my guess for who's going to kind of take over that weak side linebacker spot. And Wyoming's, I don't know if it'll change. Craig Bull's son, Aaron Bull, was promoted from linebacker coach to defensive coordinator this offseason, with Jay Savell being promoted to head coach. So I don't know if I'm assuming the defense will stay pretty similar to how it's been since he's been here, but I'd be surprised if it wasn't Evan Eller and Connor Shea just kind of fighting out that last linebacker spot on that weak side.
If you had to pick a defensive player to have a breakout type season in 2024, who would that be?
Yeah, I mentioned the cornerbacks. I'm gonna go with Tyrekus Davis. He's I don't want to guarantee anything, but like just from what I've heard and just kind of the vibes of spring camp, he's kind of locked into that number one corner spot. He's Colby Taylor left. He transferred to Vanderbilt, so he's probably their most experienced cornerback at that number one spot. And he kind of struggled at the beginning of the year. He missed a couple tackles in that Texas game, but he really turned it on. I'd say in the last 6-7 games after an injury, and I'd be surprised if he wasn't their best cornerback going into this next season.
Okay, the season's over. You're looking back on it. What has to happen for you to say, "Hey, this year was a success in 2024"?
Yeah, and that's it's tough with a coaching change, especially when you hire within, because you don't know if you're expecting the same results from the prior coach or if it's a whole new thing. But they didn't lose a ton. Besides Gavin Meyer, really in the transfer portal, they added some pretty good freshmen. So they went 9-4 last year. They went 7-0 at home. They got pretty tough schedule this year, but I think the kind of the baseline for success is obviously a bowl game. Just being Wyoming's history, just with how many bowl games they've made even in Craig Bull's tenure, like I think a baseline 6 wins, obviously, but you want to compete for a Mountain West championship. It's been long enough. You had Josh Allen in the Mountain West championship game in 2016, and you lost, and that was Craig Bull's only appearance. And that's I think if you don't compete for that, I'm not saying you win the conference title, but last year they had a chance, and then they lost. 3 road games in a row to Air Force, UNLV, and Boise State right in a row, which knocked them out of that conference title contention. So I think for me, like 8-9 wins and a chance to play in the Mountain West Championship game, I think that's kind of the bar that the athletic director Tom Berman's kind of set when he hired Salvo is, hey, we're so close, we just need to get over the hump, get there, and bring this trophy back home to Laramie.
Well, Alex, is there anything else that you want to share or think that we should know about this 2024 Wyoming Cowboys football team?
No, I think the schedule. I like how Tom Berman's kind of set the schedule up. They got a Power Five opponent right out the door. They'll be at Arizona State to open the season. I have a really interesting matchup on the road with North Texas, and I think even last year they scheduled Appalachian State at home. They go to Texas. They schedule Texas Tech at home. I don't think Wyoming is afraid to play anybody, especially now with the current landscape of college sports. So it should be. It's always fun. I don't know if you guys watch them beat Texas Tech on national TV. It's just it's a fun school to kind of get behind, just from that perspective of it's the only 4-year university in the state of Wyoming. So I like the schedule. I like who they're bringing back, and I'm looking forward to another football season.
Well, thank you again, Alex, for sharing your time and knowledge with us today. We greatly appreciate it.
For sure. I appreciate you guys having me on.
If you're watching on YouTube and have not already done so, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. 5 stars only, just like the Wyoming Cowboys. Leave those on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you all for your support.